How's everyone doing? Nice to see all your faces.
I know.
It's a nice day. Hi
I feel
to
like-
you too also.
I feel like I've gotten to know people's houses because we've been on stream a lot. So like I know what either your living room or your office or your dining room, right? Like you guys all know what my second bedroom looks like. It's very exciting.
It's nice.
We have iPad, we'll move.
So people can continue to learn with us. But we're so glad that you are all here to join us for how to make our Seder as meaningful and wonderful in the age of COVID-19. Just a couple of ground rules for Zoom so we can help you and that we can make this a meaningful experience for all. When you're not talking, we just ask that you mute. And so you can find in the lower left-hand corner is your mute button. You can always unmute yourself if you want. Your opportunity is also there is a video, so if you want to be on video, that's great. If you don't want to be on video and you're in your pajamas or someplace else, that's fine as well. Those are just a couple of the just the Zoom things. The other things are, if you see there's 3 little buttons that say moon, sorry, not moon, it says more. If you click that more button, you'll see that you can raise your hands or lower your hands. So if you have a question, Ken Rubel and I will see that you're raising your hand, or if you want to wave like this, we'll also see that as well. But you can always unmute yourself. It's a nice group. And so we want to be as interactive as possible to share this.
Doing the Q&A hand raise is better because we're across 2 pages now, and so we may not be able to see you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. But we're really excited to be with you all tonight. We're going to talk about how do we do Passover this year?
What are we doing?
What are we doing this year? And we have some ideas, but we also want to hear from you. But before we start, Ken and Rubel and I want to have people share about thinking back to past Passovers. Like, what has been the most meaningful Passover to you, or what part of Passover is the most meaningful to you? And maybe it's a Passover from when you were younger or when you were older. Does anyone have any memories or want to share with us?
While they're doing that, Rabbi President, I don't think I'm a host. If you want to promote me into a host, then I can help with the muting, unmuting, all that.
Perfect. Great. I can do that. Anyone want to share a meaningful Passover? Yes, Cindy.
Well, it was always meaningful to me when my parents would change the dishes around, because my mom was not a real big housekeeper, but this was a really huge job. And it was very important to do. I started doing it when I first had my own household, but I wasn't getting a lot of support.
Thank you. So,
that was meaningful.
So preparing for Passover, this idea of changing the preparations and the dishes is something that was memorable to you. Thank you, Cindy. Anyone else? Yep,
Shari. So Shari, you're gonna have to unmute yourself on your end. Oh, there you go.
So every year my kids kind of conduct the service, and they sing a song that they learned in Hebrew school, 10 Plagues in Egypt Land, and the whole family goes in, and it's actually a really nice way to sort of go through it and handle it. And we have a collection of masks that we put on for the 10 plagues. So we have a little bit of fun with it.
That's awesome.
Great, thank you.
A few years prayer for our country that we've included in the Seder, and that's been really meaningful to many of us.
Great, thank you. Gail raised her hand.
Oh, there we go. I grew up with much older parents who had come from Europe just before the war as adults. And so, and as an only child, it was a very, very shtetl upbringing in a lot of ways. And one of my memories as a child was always my father searching for chametz, which involved my mother leaving bread in the various rooms, including the garage, and me following him around as he walked with a candle and a chicken feather to switch. And my kids hear that story all the time and know that they will never see that.
Thank you very much. Marilyn, you raised your hand.
Okay, yes. Hi, everybody. As a child, I just remembered the quantity of seders. We used to have 4 seders. I don't know why, the first 2 nights and the last 2 nights. And we always had what I liked, a variety of neighbors who were not Jewish, which I have continued to do in my own life, to have people who participate who are not part of the Jewish faith. And so, you know, in contemporary times for my lives, having been in Jewish education for over 20 years myself, there's always a new symbol on the table. You know, a new symbol. When we started with Miriam's cup, and then we went to the orange, and I've read about the banana. And I'd like to include that as we go around the Seder table, something that's prevalent today, especially with the children, what they think would be something that they could, that is present tense in their lives as something that we can share as a community.
Thank you, Marilyn. We have Kara, and then I see you, Susan.
I know. I just was going to share a story of my grandmother told us when she was in the concentration camps, their Passover was with 1 potato. So, you know, you guys just kind of made me think of that story, that how lucky we are to be freed. Can have more than 1 potato. Sorry.
Right. Well, thank you. It's beautiful. Susan. Oh, you have to. Oh, yeah.
The potato. Can you hear me?
Now, start again, please.
Yes. In our house, we try to make it fun, and we all have masks, and we have finger puppets, and the kids' favorite, and we put all around the table are glass frogs, and they think every single Jewish holiday it's full of glass frogs, and they're always looking for them. And this year, unfortunately, I guess no. Well, maybe we'll put it.
Well, let's hold on to that thought, okay? Maybe.
Don't give up on the frogs just yet.
Yeah,
Okay, we want. I'll try.
Yeah, definitely. Anyone else want to share any meaningful? Elaine Morgenthau. I unmuted you. Oh.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So one of my memories from childhood into older was getting to sit at the grown-up table. There was always the other table for all the kids, and we didn't always hear everything. We just kind of sat there and were maybe told, okay, now it's time to do this, and now it's time to do that. So the first time sitting at the grown-up table was very special.
Great, thank you. Any other Passover reflections or meaningful times? I think for me, I think one of my most meaningful Passovers was in Israel, and just when I was studying to be a rabbi, and when you say next year in Jerusalem and you're there, it finds meaning. But more than that is how everything changes over for Passover. The restaurants change over. There is something in the air there that like you feel a part of something even greater than yourself in that moment. And I just remember walking the streets and everyone has matzah, but everyone just, it feels like they've had a close connection and a wonderful Seder, and then walking home from the Seders really late at night and having people talk about their Seders and what made it special.
Nice. Maybe since you shared, I think the most meaningful Seder I ever had was, again, in my year in Israel. I participated in a project. It was called the FSU project, which stands for Former Soviet Union, where students from HUC visited countries of the former Soviet Union. I happened to visit Belarus and spent time with the communities there and helped lead Seders with a translator in 2 different communities across Belarus. And that was a really incredible experience because, you know, even now, the community there. There was a lot of tenuousness about how much and how freely they could practice their Judaism. And so to see all of these families getting together to celebrate Passover, we were in like some kind of rec room somewhere. But even through the translator, being able to really connect to this shared identity was pretty amazing.
So thank you. We're gonna start sharing my screen. Can everyone see that? Perfect. Yep. Awesome. So you can always move the boxes if you want of the people, so you can see the entire screen. So I think this Seder this year for many people, this Passover for many people, is going to be pretty meaningful and memorable as well. Maybe not always for the right reasons, but we believe that we can make this Passover really special. And while we might not be around this table with all of our loved ones that we usually are with, we hopefully can be with them virtually, perhaps, or on the phone, or by ourselves as well. So tonight we're going to kind of walk through some ways that we can host a Seder this year, and also mark Passover differently this year, because there will be some challenges, but I think there'll also be some opportunities as well.
Yeah, I would just add, this is an opportunity to be really intentional about our Seder, right? A lot of times now we just go through the motions, we do everything the same as we've done year after year, but now is a time to really step back and think about, really think about what you do every year and evaluating it for how it's going to work this year. And so that in a way is opportunity as well.
Great. So does someone want to read this short passage by Annie Weinberg? You can unmute yourself because I can't see
do a Q&A. You may have to raise your hand because we can't see
Marilyn,
everyone all at once now.
Great. Marilyn.
Every year as we go through the Seder, we are meant to relive the ancient Israelites' journey from slavery to freedom. And we are encouraged to think about how the story relates to modern times and our own lives. While the events of the past few months have felt not unlike an ever-escalating series of plagues. And like Moses, we are all getting a sacred call to work towards the liberation, whether we feel ready or not. The part I love most about the Seder story is how unprepared Moses believes he is, that there's someone else God must be looking for. But there isn't. It's him and it's us, flaws and all. As I talk to friends, family, and loved ones these past few days, it's clear that so many of us are feeling a deep sense of anxious unreadiness and fear. And yet, it is helpful to remember that this feeling is not new for so many of us. The story is about Jewish connection to all struggles against injustice, and this moment is about how inextricable we are from one another, how our sorrows and our freedom are and have always been deeply collective. We can use this time to make rituals that honor us no matter where we are, connect us to the people we love.
So that's our hope through this little workshop, through this conversation, is that we can find ways that we can still feel deeply connected to our family and friends this Passover, how we can mark these moments of sorrow, these moments of fear, but also moments that have really celebrated the kindness of others as well. And so we'll be walking through possibly ways that we can be doing this virtually, but we also think that these are things that we can be doing every single Passover too. And so like Hannah Rubel said, we want to just think differently about how we might be doing things. Yeah. So let's look at where Passover comes in the Torah. And so this is from Exodus 12. This is where it says, this is how you're supposed to celebrate Passover. Can someone read that for me? Yep, Carol.
This day shall be to you one of remembrance. You shall celebrate it as a festival to Adonai throughout the ages. You shall celebrate it as an institution for all time. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the very first day you shall remove leaven from your houses. For whoever eats leavened bread from the first day to the 7th day, that person shall be cut off from Israel. You shall celebrate a sacred occasion on the first day and a sacred occasion on the seventh day. No work at all shall be done on them. Only what every person is to eat, that alone may be prepared for you. You shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, for on this very day I brought your ranks out of the land of Egypt. You shall observe this day throughout the ages as an institution for all time.
Thank you. So, according to Torah, what are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to mark Passover? You can unmute yourself and share. What do we have to do?
Not eat bread.
Not eat bread, right? So not eat unleavened bread, right?
Unleavened, right.
Right. So we for how many days?
7.
7 days.
7 days. Good. How many of you? I wish I could do a poll. How many of you could do? How many? So
People can just
days,
raise their hand.
Yeah. So 7 days you can eat bread. How many of you keep 8 days of Passover? Anyone want to explain why? I always have this conversation on. So I think it's like half and half. So why do some people keep 8 days of Passover?
Early learnings.
Okay, that's how you were brought up. Okay. But if it says 7 days here, why do we keep 8 days? Why do some people keep 8 days?
Because we're in the diaspora.
Right. So in the diaspora, right. So exactly. So in Israel, they only keep 7 days. Because we didn't know when that new moon was that a full moon was gonna be. And so, right, if we look up on Tuesday night, it might look like a full moon, or Wednesday night might look like a full moon. We're not 100% sure when that full moon will be, so we want to cover our bases to make sure that we are celebrating the holiday at the right time. As Reform Jews, many of us follow what Israel does, but also knowing that we understand when the full moon is, right? We know the cycle of the moon.
We got science.
To the full moon, right?
Yeah.
We have science. So we know that's 7 days. So the Torah says 7 days, we should do 7 days as well. I think there's a chat there.
Kara raised her hand.
Okay, great.
Go ahead, Kara.
Oh no, we do 8 days in my house. So
yeah.
So that, yeah, I was just agreeing.
I'm gonna lower your hand.
Did you literally mean raise your hand, or did you like?
Yeah, I know. It's who can tell the difference anymore.
So we have 7 days, right? The Torah says 7 days, don't eat unleavened bread. What else does it say? How else are we supposed to celebrate Passover?
Take all the unleavened bread out of our houses.
Oh yeah, so take it all of your houses. So there's like this idea of spring cleaning right now, right? So that's one way that we should do it. So take out all the unleavened bread. Anything else?
Celebrate a sacred occasion.
There's a sacred occasion, right? We should celebrate the sacred occasion. And why are we observing this holiday?
We came out of Egypt.
Yes, Lou? I can't hear you.
You can now. All right, okay. So when it says, it doesn't say to have a Seder the first and second day. It says first and seventh day.
Does it say to have a Seder?
No, sacred occasion.
A sacred occasion.
No.
Right. So, it doesn't say, so according to Torah, if we were just following the Torah here, it doesn't say anything about having a Seder with your family. It's a sacred occasion, and that you shouldn't be working on the first day and on the seventh day.
Right, but and isn't there also a service in synagogue for the first day and the seventh day?
Yes, there is a service there, and there will be a service on Zoom here as well. Right.
Yes,
so
right.
The first day and the seventh day. Seventh day is with Yizkor services.
Right.
The first day is a market of, it's a sacred occasion, and so you should not work, and you should only eat what every person that alone may be prepared for you. But it doesn't say anything about seders. It doesn't say anything about 4 cups of wine. It doesn't say anything about finding the afikomen, right? All of these things. So if we think about it in our day and age today, right, that's the Haggadah becomes something that we have created.
Oh.
Right, and it's but according to Torah, if we were following the Torah thing, we wouldn't. This is how perhaps we could celebrate Passover.
And that the Haggadah itself was an adaptation.
Right.
At this time in biblical Judaism, this was a holiday of pilgrimage where the Jews would come, as one of the 3 times of year where they would come to the temple in Jerusalem and offer sacrifices. That was the way that Passover was observed. Once there was no temple, like a lot of things that happened to us in our Jewish practice, it had to be adapted for a new situation. And so that is part of the reason why we even have a Haggadah in the first place. It was an adaptation to having something and then having to do something differently.
And so I think that's what we kind of think about. I think that's really important, right? How do we adapt this year under these circumstances? And what can we do to mark Passover? So a little bit about a Haggadah, which all of you know, but I think Jean or Carol, can you read that for me? Carol Rosner, got it, perfect.
Telling in Hebrew is a written guide to the Passover Seder, which commemorates the Israelites' exodus from Egypt. The Haggadah includes various prayers, blessings, rituals, fables, songs, and information for how the Seder should be performed. Although modern Haggadot, the plural of Haggadah, can vary widely, the tradition of reading a book to guide the Seder dates back to the Middle Ages, and some of the elements that make up contemporary Haggadot were used 2,000 years ago.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have a favorite Haggadah that they have used?
Maxwell House.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Maxwell House, right? So some people use the Maxwell House. I love it. There's a new
classic,
Maxwell House, I think, too.
Right.
Yes.
So we use one when we go to our daughter's house for Seder that she has compiled.
Nice.
Using various Haggadahs, and she's pulled things from there. And in telling the story, when our grandson was old enough, it was just he told the story, how he had learned it in Hebrew school or Sunday school, not necessarily reading directly through it. But it's a Haggadah that she has compiled.
Nice. So many people do their own personal Haggadot.
Right.
Anyone else want to?
I've enjoyed some of the theme Haggadot that have come out over the years. A few years ago, I bought the Harry Potter Haggadah. We used that one year. That's always fun, just changing it up. Yeah.
Yeah, Carol Siegel. Oh, I'm going to unmute you. Sorry, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, our daughter, when she was maybe in her junior year or so of high school, made a Haggadah, and she compiled it from different sources, and we printed it up in a casual, but not too casual format. And so we have maybe a dozen of them. So we use that every year. The only problem is this year, they're here in my house in Jersey, and everybody else is in different states.
So here's something that you can do. And this is where we're gonna mix history and theory with some practicality, right? So you have a Haggadah that you've used for many years, right? Not all of us have scanners. Not all of us have Xerox machines at home, but I think most of us have this, right? A phone. And so Canna Rubo and I have become pros at taking pictures of our Haggadah or of other things and making it into a PowerPoint. And we're happy to help you navigate that. Right. It might not be always something that you have used. Like if there's something that you've always used, we can figure there are ways that you can continue to use it. And I think that's really important for us. So while they might all be at your home, what would it look like for you to take a snapshot of each of the pages, or at least some of the pages that you can use this year
or
with your family?
Okay. But so and some other options could be you could mail them out. Mail a copy to each home. And so that's even easier if you'd like, that way everyone can follow from the same Haggadah. It's also, I mean, when we're sitting around our table, chances are we all have different Haggadahs anyway. And so that can be fun as well. It doesn't have to have the same Haggadah. And then the other thing to know is that as a synagogue are going to be hosting a Seder on the first night of Passover. And during that time, we're going to be using a virtual Haggadah, which is going to be a PDF document that you can put onto your screen, and you share your screen as you can do on Zoom, and people can all follow along together. We're going to make that available to everyone to download. So if that's something that you would like to use with your family, and everyone's got their computers or phones or iPads or whatever you want, that's an option as well.
That's cool.
So we're gonna go back and forth a little bit. Does anyone have another Haggadah that they really like?
Your Haggadah.
Rosners, I know that you pointed at something.
Yeah, we traditionally use the Reform
Nice.
Haggadah, which
That's what I used growing
has
up.
some very, very beautiful readings. We supplement those readings.
Yeah.
I find it's very easy to follow along.
Yeah, that's the Haggadah I used when I grew up. And my dad always had a supplement for different parts. Lots of Jewish organizations send out different readings that you can perhaps use, or different comics or YouTube videos, and they were supplemented, but with the traditional Haggadah in our hands. So, right, the main part of one of the main rituals or the ritual items of Passover is the Seder plates. So during the Seder, we don't just tell the story of Exodus, we smell, we feel, we taste the liberation. And so many of the elements are sensory, which serve as the centerpiece of the Seder table. The Seder plate traditionally holds all these items. All right, so we have the karpas, the maror, the beitzah, the ze'orah, haroset, atzeret, and matzah. So I guess, what happens if we can't have one of these this year? What happens if we can't get that shank bone? What do we do? Right? What happens?
Aluminum foil.
What'd you say?
I said, make it out of aluminum foil. And I always have a lot of turkey wishbones. Don't ask me why, for good luck. So I can put that out also.
Right.
So draw a picture.
Draw a picture, right?
Yeah.
I think that we have to give ourselves the flexibility this year to say, you know what? I'm not going to go shopping at 4 different grocery stores this year to find that shank bone. And that's okay. While we can try, that might not be the option, right? Parsley might be difficult to get at this time of year. I think ShopRite actually is well stocked. Someone told me that earlier. But knowing there can be other green vegetables. We always think it's parsley the dip, right? Karpas, we always think. But is there another green thing that is growing? Like right now, my chives are going crazy in my garden. Could I use chives this year instead of parsley?
Can't you use a potato for the karpas?
So some people have used potatoes as well. Right. So there's flexibility in that sense.
And, there are a lot of people that make substitutions on their Seder plate, again, at any time of year. So for example, some who are vegetarian will choose instead of the shank bone to use a beet. And so you can take, I don't know why, but in my family, we always bought cans of beets. Like we made beet salad and stuff on Passover. Like that was a thing. And so that's another option. And so for each of these things, there are ways to get creative, and also add any non-traditional elements to your Seder that you would anyway. And there are so many different ones nowadays, just like Marilyn said.
So the beet, does everyone understand why a beet might work well for a shank bone this year or every year? What was the shank bone for?
Blood.
That's the blood on the doorpost.
Yeah, so right, beet stain, I know that, right? So
Yeah.
imagine taking a beet and wiping it across your thing.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Or you could.
Do what you want.
Right. So, so there's options like that as well. Anyone else to put non-traditional items on their Seder?
I'll tell you what I'm going to use this year next to the cup for Elijah, because we're inviting Elijah into our homes. I'm going to put rubber gloves and a mask.
Right?
I like it.
What more
I'm into it.
Can you get for, this virtual Seder?
Yeah.
Nice, I like that.
I think a lot of people, speaking of Cup of Elijah, a lot of people also know about the Cup of Miriam. And if you don't, it's become a tradition in some families to also have a cup set aside for Miriam filled with water, to signify the role that Miriam and women in general play during the Passover story and as part of our Jewish community. And what people might do is you take the cup and then have people go around the table and pour a little bit of their water into the cup So that's another tradition some people add.
Yeah, Marilyn.
Can't do Rubel, what we do with that, I have a beautiful collection of the Miriam cups. It happens to be my Hebrew name.
Me too.
When we, you too?
Mhm.
Yeah, in Barrow, right in there. And when we pass it around, I invite the children and all of us to talk about a woman that has had a special presence in their life. It could be living or not.
Nice.
That person. And I love when the children have to stop and think of course, they usually say their moms, or their moms are not going to be very happy. But I love that addition.
Beautiful.
Very much so.
So a couple of pre-Passover activities that you can use with your grandchildren or children or your adults as well. So one thing is the matzah. I want to know that the temple has lots of boxes of matzah. So if you're looking for matzah, don't want to go to the store, we're happy to deliver the matzah to your doorpost this year. You just have to fill out a form online, and we will be happy to, you'll be getting that delivery this weekend. So,
We have our matzah elves on the case.
Yes, they're ready. So if you need a box of matzah and you don't want to go to the store, please know that that's for anyone in our congregation. We will be happy to drop some matzah off at your door. But if you can't if you don't want that matzah, you can also make your own. It's really quick because it only can take 18 minutes. So it's a fast thing. You turn up your oven to like 500 degrees. You do some olive oil, flour, and salt, and basically you can make that matzah ready for you.
That's
so
right.
that can be a fun activity. We're probably going to do that live as well one of these days as well. So you can join us to make matzah.
I think Monday.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. By the way, there's a lot of links in this PowerPoint. I think we're going to make this PowerPoint available to you as well, so you don't have to write things down. So if anything here strikes your interest.
Yeah. So Cindy said that she made matzah growing up as well, so that's really nice.
Cool.
Right. We have the chametz hunts. So I'm doing a program on Tuesday night called Dedicat Chametz, which Gail was talking a little bit about earlier when meaningful experiences. What's with that feather and the wooden spoon and the candle. And we'll be at late Tuesday night at 7:30, we'll be hunting for chametz around our house. And traditionally you would burn that in the next morning. So that's an opportunity for you. And then there's other things for how to cook and all these other things. So.
I just wanted to, highlight a couple of things on there. So there are obviously a lot of resources for finding stories and books about Passover. PJ Library, of course, as you know, as many of us with families with young kids know, has a lot of great resources. And I also highlighted two podcasts that are more for grownups that have some interesting takes on learning about Passover in general. And then there's a really interesting article that was on My Jewish Learning about cooking for Passover during coronavirus. So I saw they had some recipes, some great things about substitutions that you can make for certain ingredients. And so that might be helpful to check out as well if you're going to be cooking at home.
So we want to make this Passover as special as it can, and we know it's and some nice ways to do it, right? Is that we can start inviting people, right? Join me for my virtual Seder, send them a nice e-card, send them the link that you're going to stream or the face group live that you're going to do or the FaceTimes that you're going to share, right? Our Seder starts at 6, right? So our Seder starts at 5 o'clock. Call it for the time that if you can't be with the people around your table, call it for that time is when people come. And if people always come late, you should tell them to come. This is when you come, right? They don't have to travel this
do
year,
what you were going to do anyway. Yeah.
Right. There's also a lot of people, and if you feel comfortable, some people are cooking meals and sharing it with putting on the door posts or the stairs of their families. So you can always encourage people to continue to make food or drop off. I know many congregants there are making care packages for their families, and they can all eat. So they're all eating the same food, maybe on different dishes, but they're a part of that as well. The idea is, like Karen Ruppel said, that you can always mail things to people, right? The mail's still running, and so maybe there's a reading that you want someone to share at your virtual Seder, or maybe you have grandchildren that can't be with you, so maybe you can send them a toy or do some word searches as well.
I think the idea is that this Seder just requires a little more prep beforehand. Whereas normally we sort of invite people and then we sit down, we have our Haggadah and we just rock and roll. That thinking about this stuff now when it's about a week before the Seder, and figuring out, again, like what web platform do you want to use for your Seder? Do you want to use Zoom? Do you want to use Facebook? Figuring that out. If you want everyone to participate, helping people gather supplies beforehand so that they are ready to participate on the night of the Seder.
Right. And I also think it's setting apart just a regular dinner, right? And then what would you be doing if you could with your family, right? Would it be using that fine china? Yeah, perhaps. Would it be having that white tablecloth with grape juice stains? Would it be the ritual items that you would always use? We are going to continue to do that. I'm marking the moment. It's still Passover. It's still Seder. It's still with my family. They might not be, they're on the screen and they might be sharing something else as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would also just recommend any technology that you're going to be using to do a test run before the actual day of the Seder. So, getting on Zoom or, getting one of the teenagers in your family who, it's always good for them to have a job, to help be the tech person, to help so that on the day, you don't have to spend so much time, I can't hear you or you're blurry or, that keeps cutting out. So doing a test run could be really helpful. We do it all the time when we're using Zoom now.
And just a couple of other things, right? So can we assign people things to do beforehand, right? So this is your section that you'll be leading, but this is your reading that you will be joining us for, right? So we usually say, oh, can you do this reading if they're around the table? They can still do that, but letting people know that they are going to be participating in the service is really, a Seder is really important. That's what we'll be doing on our first night ritual Seder. It won't just be me reading. I will be asking people to share some things about the Haggadah, and also maybe some other things throughout that night as well.
Yeah. And I think just technology tip, if people are not reading, just having people mute themselves. It can keep the background noise to a minimum, especially if you have kids, if there's traffic outside of your home. That's always a good tip. And I would also say so if you have the option to use like a laptop, to use that, it is usually more reliable than using your phone or your iPad. And so if you have that, or even the desktop, literally in our dining room right now, we have a whole setup with a monitor and all kinds of stuff. And that's a good way to feel more connected. The screen's bigger, you can see everybody more clearly.
Great. Lou, you have your
So with our Havarah, Charlie's Angels, we've met several times already, and
nice.
One of the problems you have with Zoom is you have to make sure that the host has unlimited time, because what happens is you'll be cut off in 40 minutes.
Correct.
And then getting them back was not so easy.
Right.
So that's one thing. I see in here you ask someone to make an Afikoman word search to be texted or emailed. Well, my question is, it's not a question. We were one of the most unique. Yeah, let Dina say.
Okay, so we were for several years, we attended a Seder, which was very large, a lot of family, strangers, not strangers to us, but all different people. They had two Afikomans. They had one that was hid before, it wasn't really an Afikoman, but hid before the Seder began. And then they had one that they hid during the Seder. That was for the kids. The one that was hid beforehand was for the adults to find. And you were allowed to go anywhere in their house. They could open up the drawers. There were certain rooms closed off, but you could open up drawers. You could look anywhere. And then whoever found it, the host gave a gift to to a charity that the
Right.
person chose.
Like $100 gift for charity.
Right.
We have some Afikomen ideas coming up as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
Cara Barnett's just posted, because of the Zoom issue, there's an app called House Party app that allows up to 8 people, or 8 different things, and it's unlimited time. So if that's an option for you guys, if you want to try that, the 45-minute is free, but Zoom is for 45 minutes.
Zoom is 40 minutes if you have a free account. If you upgrade to a pro account, then you get more privileges. It does cost money. But in general, these apps are more reliable than, for example, trying to do a big conference call or doing a big FaceTime.
You can also get a trial subscription to Zoom for about $15. Gives you the unlimited time.
Right.
Does everybody participating in the Seder have to have the same
No.
Zoom?
No.
app?
No.
For
it's only-
Zoom, you can both use an app, and it can be on your phone or on the computer, or you can call in. There's a number, and then there's a meeting ID, and so you can email that to someone, and then they can just use the phone to call in as well.
Okay. So as long as one person, let's say one person has the upgraded Zoom, will that apply?
Then
to
you're good.
everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then that will be good. And also there are meetings, and there are also kind of webinar. There are different options. With a meeting, everyone just comes on and has the same privileges. But you can also promote people to different, so if you want to be a host, then you can do things like mute people, like we're doing now, muting people, sharing screens, things like that. And so I would make sure, if you're going to use Zoom or any app, you take a look at what all your options are. Always Googling is the best way to find out. And also, if you have more specific questions about Zoom, we're happy to answer whatever we can. And also Jackie Gruscott, who's been our Zoom guru, if you have questions that we can pass along to her as well.
Right.
Thank you.
So just planning our Haggadah. So we're going to offer a virtual Haggadah that Ken Rubel has been really working on, that everyone can use as a PDF. And you can add new readings if you want. There's English, there's Hebrew, there's songs. The CCAR, which is the Central Conference of American Rabbis, you can still order Haggadahs before by the Friday, and they can get it to you by Wednesday. They also have a flip book that you can download for free. So the new CCR Haggadah you can use, and you can flip through that as well. As well as there's the famous one, as Noam Sion. Sorry. A Different Night, this one. This author has made it available online as well as a downloadable thing, so you can use that. That's really for this.
Rabbi Prosnick, do you want to add that to the PowerPoint?
I can add that to the PowerPoint. Yes, definitely.
Haggadot.com, someone already mentioned. I've used that a lot for different readings, and you can sort of compile your own Haggadah in their on their site. It's a wonderful resource. They have all kinds of sources from HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, from Mazon. They have art. They have all kinds of great things. And so I always rep Haggadah.com. Haggadot.com, I should say.
And Kara shared with us that PJ Library also has downloadable PDFs as well. So people are being very upfront and very friendly with their downloads this year. So during the Seder, I think it's important to mark the moment of what's happening and why we're not all together. So we should mark that COVID-19 is the issue, why we're not there, but it shouldn't be the only thing we're talking about. I think it's on our minds a lot, but Passover gives us the opportunity to talk about it, but also talk about our Jewish traditions, continue to tell the stories, have people, like we shared at the very beginning, these are meaningful Passover stories, the stories that are always told at the Seder should continue to be told at the Seder as well. When we're also, some people like to just mark the moment before you begin a Seder, recognizing not everyone's there, but centering people and saying, you know what, let's all put our hands on our hearts, take a deep breath, close our eyes, imagine that we're all in this same room. We hug ourselves and we open our eyes and send that hug around, right? Just marking. And some people might not like that. Some people laugh.
Might be too woo-woo for some people, but
Right.
I think the idea is that you find a way to feel a connection with people. Something we've done also is, if you have your Zoom or you have everybody in little boxes, doing a high five from box to box and stuff like that are ways to just feel connected and bring some like lightness, right? Passover is a celebration. Like, let's have fun. Let's make it what it should be, which is fun, a celebration.
And it's also a holiday about asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's questions that everyone can answer. What questions would you like to ask your grandmother, your great-grandmother, anyone like that, right? What else should be on our Seder plate tonight? Why are there masks and gloves on my Seder? What should the next question be? And I think that's an opportunity and when I do Seder, when I go to my family Seder, people interrupt all the time, right? It's okay, ask me a question, even though we might not be around the table. I think it's important to be as interactive and have those conversations as possible. Lou, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, Rabbi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. What would you think about incorporating discussion about COVID-19 into the plagues?
Yeah, so we're going to get there. So this is just a basic, but yes, what would it look like? I think it's appropriate. And we have some resources for you when we get there a little bit. So can I hold on that for a second, Andrew? Yeah.
Sure.
There are actually multiple places in the Seder that could be good opportunities for wisdom connected to the idea of the coronavirus and the ways that it affects our lives. And so, yeah, we're going to talk about that in a little while.
Yeah.
Great. Do you want me to do the next one?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the big parts of the Seder, right, is music, is singing together. And again, connecting over Skype or Zoom or whatever you're using can make that difficult. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but when you're on a Zoom call and you try to speak at the same time or sing at the same time, it's really not possible because of the lag that goes from, traveling from one to the other. So a few things to do. One thing is, still sing the songs, all the songs you love, but what you can do is maybe for that time while you're singing, you can mute so that people can sing and not be distracted by the kind of the lag and just be okay with doing things at your own pace. Another idea is to, either to get a kid or a teen or anyone who is a part of your Seder to come up with hand motions for some of the songs. So if you're singing, Dayenu or something, and you're doing like, Ilu Hotzi Hotzi Anu Mi Mitzray, that way everyone can do something together, even when we can't hear each other's voices because of the kind of lag of singing. So yeah, I would encourage you to think creatively of how to use our bodies as well as our voices when we sing during the Seder. Or again, trading off, giving different families a chance to lead different songs so that that's still a part of your Seder experience.
And you want to talk about your Passover playlist?
Yeah, sure. So, another thing to think about is kind of what are we going to do while we're eating, right? The in-between time. For some families, they do the entirety of their Seder before the meal and they may say, okay, goodbye, and then they'll go and eat on their own. Some may choose to take a break and then come back and continue the Seder if that's your tradition. And some may choose to stay on the line and just eat and talk while everyone's around. But one thing that I've started to do is create a little Passover playlist of just like some fun songs, some parodies, some different things that you might want to play during your meal. So that it's everybody can have the same link and listen to the same songs. It's another way to sort of share music. You can use this playlist. You can make up your own, and you can play it while you're eating in your break time or whatever. And so it's a way to have fun and feel connected to each other during the mealtime.
So there's also the opportunity, as we were saying, how do we bring the moment that we are living in into our Seder? So we add a lot to our Seder plates throughout the years, right? An orange, some people do, an olive, fair trade chocolates. What would we add this year? What is that item to thank healthcare workers or to think about our health? Does anyone have an idea what they might add?
I would say something to think about would be to highlight the story of Shifra and Pua. Shifra and Pua were two midwives who, when Pharaoh had, was wanted to they was scared about the numbers of the Jews in Egypt, said to the midwives, when the mothers are kept giving birth, if it's a boy, you should kill them. And these two midwives, who were the healthcare workers of their time, risked their own lives by refusing to enact Pharaoh's laws. And when Pharaoh asks them, comes back and asks them, why is this not happening? Why are they still, their population is still growing? They say, the Israelite women are so strong and so powerful that they deliver their babies before we can even get there. And to me, that's a great analogy to our own healthcare workers that are putting their lives on the line. They're, being creative and using ingenuity to protect all of us. And so that might be a good thing to add to your Haggadah this year.
Right. Anyone, what else would anyone put, is anyone thinking about what they might put on their Seder plate this year to represent? It's perhaps a question that you can ask your attendees. What would they put on their Seder plates? The idea of hand washing, right? We do it twice in our Seder, right? Thinking about that, how hand washing has become such an integral part of our lives right now, even though we used to always do it, like how we're so attuned and what we're trained to do it this time.
Yeah.
We'll also share a beautiful prayer for hand washing written by Reform Rabbi that you can say, right? One of the blessings, one time you don't really say anything, but there's another prayer that you can add during this moment of this pandemic too.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but that was a part of the Seder that we'd always kind of gloss over. Like, yeah, we get it. You wash your hands, blah, blah, blah. But maybe this is the year to be more mindful about that process and really think about its impact. Because we wash our hands in the Seder 2 times, and the first time being to sort of ritually prepare us, right? It's not necessarily about cleanliness. And then the second time to prepare to eat our meal. And there's, it's interesting to think about why we would wash twice in the Seder and how that is a part of our lives now, not just washing twice, but, multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marilyn? Yeah, Marilyn?
Well, I think I would get a huge bottle of hand sanitizer, big bottle. Leave it there next to Elijah and Miriam's cup.
I've heard that.
But in black, maybe real. I mean, not to, so it's not so humorous, but maybe really, maybe the kids, if you have a big bottle, or if you have a lot of kids, maybe they could decorate it, get construction paper or white paper and, decorate it with something that that's not so happy.
Yeah.
With colors.
Taking it and making it from the mundane to the holy, right? That's a lot of what we do as religious people, is we take something ordinary and we make it extraordinary. And so if that's a bottle of hand sanitizer this year, then that's a holy object, and that's something you can add to your Seder experience.
Yeah, and so there's just some other ideas on this slide, but I think the idea of having a conversation about the plagues, right? We've done many times that we do modern plagues, right? Maybe it's poverty, maybe it's global climate change, right? We are facing a plague in our world today. And what is that? And having a conversation about how that perhaps has affected us as individuals, as a country, what we'll be doing to change after this. Also knowing that there are many people that this plague affects perhaps more greatly than us. And how do we talk about that, right? Many of us are lucky to have a home, right? And to be in this or to have the access to healthcare. I think that this pandemic has only highlighted some of the other plagues that are taking place in our society today as well. And what can we do to fight and to combat those other epidemics that are happening in our country and in our world.
I would add also that, the Seder in a lot of ways is a call to action. Part of the Seder is saying in every generation, we should treat ourselves as if we personally went out of Egypt. And this quarantine is also our action, our way of protecting our friends and our neighbors and strangers. And so thinking about it in that context of this way that we are actually, by staying home, we are standing up to protect each other, can be a really powerful connection to this idea of that, like, we tell the story of Passover every year to keep that tradition going and to remind us of our values. This is our values too. Jean, were you going to say something?
Yeah, another thought has occurred to me. If we relate this pandemic to the plagues of Exodus, where we were clearly exempted from those plagues. We weren't affected by the plagues of the Exodus, but clearly we are affected by this plague. Now I'm still playing with that concept, but it's something to think about, how as Jews we're part of this plague, and we weren't affected by the plagues of old.
Yeah.
Well, that they, while on the surface are somewhat similar, really serve different purposes, right?
Oh, for sure.
And this is a great way if you're going to have a Seder with a lot of grownups, or if you want a grown-up conversation, like this is a really interesting topic, I think.
And then just a little bit about enslaved in a specific place, right? What will it look like when we're free from our homes? Like, what will we be doing? How will our mindset change, right? This has been difficult, but when I've talked to people on the phone, they've learned a lot about the ways that they're connecting with their families and with their friends, that they're reaching out to people that they don't reach out to on a daily basis. And so I think sometimes when we are in dark places or when we are enslaved, right, we learn a lot about what we can do with our freedom when we are free.
Yeah. And again, just to say, like, the word Mitzrayim, which is the Hebrew word for Egypt, it means a narrow place. And I don't know about you, but me in my 2-bedroom apartment, it's starting to feel like a very narrow place. Wow. And like the Jewish people, we forget that they had to wait 400 years to be free. That's a lot of patience. And so we, again, like their story, we're in the narrow place now. And how do we show patience? How do we find resilience? We'll actually talk about that when we get to the thing for the Afikomen.
Great. And just here's some other things that people can do. It's good to have a conversation about how this is experience has impacted them. How can we commit to organizations that might be most essential at this moment? Food banks, hospitals, Mazon, all of those as well. So a couple other resources, we've had those. I think a fun thing right here, I'm pulling it up, Afikomen. So we can't hide the Afikomen, but here's a Where's Waldo Afikomen. You can, I can't zoom in, but you can, when everyone's looking for the Afikomen, you can have a game. Whoever can find the Afikomen on this page first wins as well, right? And give them a prize. Send them. You can Venmo them $1 or $2 or something like that once they find the Afikomen. I don't want you to cheat, so I'm going to take this off. But if if you find Afikomen, please let us know, because Canada Open, I cannot found it yet.
I found it. No, I totally found it.
Okay.
I did.
Okay.
I did find it. Another resource that it's on one of the slides, I forget where, is an organization called Moving Traditions, which provides great programming for teens, but does things that work for younger kids and adults as well. Has a thing to do for the it's like for the Afikomen, where you use that time to share stories to inspire resilience. And so it's a thing you can print out, or you can send to people who can print it out in their homes, where finding the Afikomen is also about like an adult writing down a story that they want to share with someone of the younger generation. And if you scroll down a little more, Rabbi Prosnet, you can see what it says, like to give as the almost like the prize for finding the Afikomen is the story that you would want to share, which I thought was really beautiful, and again works for any Haggadah, or any Passover, not just this one.
I think that's the message. Actually, a lot of these things, while it could work for our moments now, it's also something that you can use in a future a Passover Seder too.
Yeah.
And so we have other resources. There's a lot on refugees. There's a lot of social justice aspects. There's Pinterest and things too. Does anyone else have?
Always good on Pinterest.
Yeah. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to bring us all back so we
yeah.
can. Any other thoughts that we have that you've been thinking about, or this has made you think what you might be doing this year?
This has been very helpful. I want to say it's been very helpful, and it's wonderful that you're going to have the virtual Haggadah. I think that sounds the easiest, actually, as everyone can bring that. I think the hardest part is where to station the
computer.
The computer.
Yeah.
Or move it around, or have two. I wonder if
you could do that. I mean, I think having one at the end of the table can work. You can move yourselves to get closer to the mic if you're speaking, right? You don't have to stay in your same seat. In fact, it's good to get our steps in, since we're all kind of inside. I would also add, by the way, that we are also available as resources. If you want to reach out to one of us personally, both myself, Rabbi Prosnet, obviously we have great resources in our educators as well. And also Jackie Groscott, who again knows a lot about Zoom because she's had to learn, and she I know would be happy to answer questions as well.
Great.
Any other thoughts, or
keep the computer away from the wine? Thank you, Kara. Yeah, that's important. Make sure you protect it from the food and the drink.
Some people would say drink more wine than you have in the past.
Especially if you have kids. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it may be worthwhile putting some kind of protection or on the laptop or around the laptop, like a Ziploc bag or something.
Yeah, definitely. Are there other things that people might be doing this year?
I'm asking people if they want to share a poem, a story, a special prayer that kind of ties in what we're going through now with the virtual Seder.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Susan said, right, they always have these glass frogs, right? Was that you, Susan?
Yeah.
I think I could continue this. I would set the table like you would any other Passover. Maybe with some fewer dishes, but the opportunity to say, yeah, these are the traditions that you will remember. And so put it on the laptop, or put it in a place that people like recognize those things in their Seder. And this is my Passover Seder. I think that's really important. The things that you could always did,
yeah,
might have to modify, but I think you should continue to do.
Maybe the kids want to make frogs that aren't glass, but maybe they're made out of Play-Doh, or they've colored them and cut them out. Something you can do in your own home to kind of bridge the gap that comes through the internet.
And I think for those of us who aren't tech savvy, to do a dry run with just a few people, because the last thing you want to happen is fumfering on Wednesday night.
Yes. Any other thoughts that we can celebrate? I think the last thing is why is this Seder different from all other Seders? We know why, right? And hopefully that we could be back together in a short time and celebrating our families and our tradition, and that hopefully this is just one that we remember for a long time, and we think critically about how we want to mark this moment, and we can use some of the things that we do this year again for the following years as well.
I would also say, we've now had the opportunity to celebrate Shabbat together online. We've had the opportunity to celebrate B'nai Mitzvah online. And I think what we've all noticed universally is when you take something away, the part that remains is even more precious. So even more, it feels even more important to be in the same space as, in seeing people's faces and making jokes with each other and telling the same stories. So yeah, there may be something that has been taken away for this particular Seder, but I think that I'm excited to see how much more precious the rest of it will feel because of that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. We will be doing some different, just to let you know what we'll be doing for Passover tomorrow is a charosa making course with Cantor Novik. There'll be I think we're making matzah one night next week. On Tuesday, our Bible class will be studying Passover as well. Tuesday night, we're going to do Bedikat Chametz, searching for the Chametz in our house through candlelight. Wednesday night will be our virtual Passover Seder, which will be recorded. So if people want to do a second night Seder, they can use that. We'll also have services Thursday morning. And throughout the week, we'll also be doing other events, Tiny Tot Shabbat, Passover style for our youngest children, other events throughout the week as well. So we hope it's a happy Passover, as you said, Pesach.
Yeah. Pesach to all.
Yes.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Rabbi President, how do you want to make the PowerPoint available?